Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to check out Middle Empire, a board game for 2 to 4 players for ages 13 and up, with the average playtime being about 30 minutes. So the developer described this game to me as a cross between Settlers of Catan, Risk, and Monopoly. And based on what I've played so far, I have to agree with some of that. It's like Settlers of Catan in the sense that you'll have this game board with various locations on it, and you'll be trying to expand your empire by putting these stronghold pieces down first, and then replacing those strongholds with these empire pieces. And the first player to get so many empire pieces on the board will actually win the game. It's also like Settlers in the fact that you can create roads in between the various locations on the board, and it's sort of like Risk in the sense that you can attack other territories and take those over. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at the components and see how the game is played. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the components. You've got your board with various locations on it, sort of like a Risk board. You've got 3 decks down here. You've got the attack deck. That's basically used to attack other players and remove roads from play. You've got this defense deck here, which basically allows you to defend against an attack, as well as build roads. And finally, over here on the right is the construction deck. That allows you to place stronghold and empire pieces. As far as these pieces on the left-hand side, these are your roads. These are your strongholds, these are your empires, and these are walls. Okay, so setting up the game is pretty easy. Each player chooses a color and receives the roads, strongholds, and the empire pieces of that color. The 3 decks are shuffled and put into their respective draw piles. Each player gets a starting hand of 5 cards. They'll get 1 attack card, 1 defense card, and 3 construction cards. Now the game is broken up over a series of turns, and on a player's turn what they'll do is they'll take 2 cards from any of these 3 decks. You could take 1 from here, 1 from here, 1 from here, 1 from here, 2 cards from here, so on and so forth. Pretty easy stuff. After that, the player can play up to 3 cards. Now the player doesn't have to play any cards if they don't want to, but if they play more than 1 card, they can only play 1 of each color. So, for example, this player could not do 2 green construction cards and 1 red attack card. They could do 1, 1, and 1 because they're different colors, or they could do 1 and 1, but they cannot play more than 1 of the same color on their turn. After they play cards, then they'll discard down to 7 if they have more than 7 cards in their hand, and that will end their turn. So with all that being said, what do some of these cards do? Well, let's take a look at these construction cards. This is how you win the game. What you're going to want to do whenever you play a construction card is look at the location here. You'll put the card into the discard pile like this, face down, and you'll put one of your stronghold cubes onto that particular spot. Okay? Now, if you already have a stronghold cube on that spot, you'll simply replace it with one of your empire pieces. And again, the first player to put so many on the board, and the number that you need, it all depends on the number of players. The first person to do that will end up winning the game. So just as an example, this player discarded 1 card. He gets to put the stronghold on there. If he had the ability to... Well, that was a very simplistic overview of a player's turn. So I'm going to show you a few examples on what you can do with these cards on your turn. And this is just for example purposes. This is an actual gameplay here. For starters, let's look at these green construction cards. Basically, these allow you to put one of these stronghold pieces on the board or upgrade a stronghold into an empire. To put a stronghold on the board, it has to be a location with an empty space on it. Thracia, for example. He's going to go ahead and discard that, put it in to the discard pile face down, and put one of his colored cubes, let's say this is green here, and he puts one of his stronghold pieces on that location. If instead he wanted to try and upgrade one of his strongholds, he could instead play a card that already has a stronghold cube on it. In this case, he has area here, and he already has a green stronghold cube on area. So he's going to go ahead and discard this instead, and put that face down, and he can upgrade his stronghold by taking his stronghold and replacing it with an empire piece. And again, the first player to get so many empire pieces on the board will win the game. The number that you need all depends on the number of players. Now, a few of the other things you can do, you can build roads, and that's what this defense card here is. Let's just say he wanted to do that. He can discard that card and build a road. He can do something like this. And it has to be in between a location that he owns and something else. So he couldn't just put a road up here. He doesn't own either of these two locations. But he could put it here because he does have an empire piece here. So that's one thing that you can do. Now, roads allow you to attack other locations on the board. The enemy cannot use your road, but you can use your own road. And finally, let's take a look at this attack an opponent card. Whenever you play one of these and you have a road of your color leading to that location, you can discard that. Now the enemy has to play a defense card. There's no like rolling dice or anything like that in this game. These defense cards don't have any numbers on them. These attack cards don't have any numbers on them. Either the opponent has a defend against attack card or he doesn't. If he doesn't, then the attacking player gets to remove that stronghold and put a stronghold in its place like so. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just quickly show you a few more examples, things that you haven't seen yet. For example, you've got this remove road. It's an attack card. If it had been Red's turn, he could have played a remove road to get rid of this green road back here. So that's just one example of what you could do with that. Double attack. This way you can either attack the same location twice and the enemy would have to produce 2 defense cards to defend against that particular attack, or you could split your attack between 2 different locations. You've also got this pick 2 more cards defense card. This is one of those blue cards here. So this allows you to draw more cards. You can actually construct city walls. Whenever you put those down, you'll be able to basically absorb an attack before the enemy can take it over. And finally, these construction cards here, build any stronghold. This is sort of like a wild card. You could put a stronghold anywhere on the board. This one is also sort of like a wild card, upgrade any stronghold. So you can turn any stronghold that you own into an empire. Alright, so there you have it, a very brief look at Middle Empire. It's important to stress that I did not cover all of the rules found in the manual. This was just a brief overview to give you an idea as to how the game is played. So as far as what I thought, well first let's address the age requirement. I do not agree that the game has to be played by 13-year-olds or older. I think that a competent 8 or 10-year-old that has played Settlers of Catan or Risk should be able to play this game. Speaking of Risk and Settlers, this game was compared to Settlers of Catan, Risk, and Monopoly by the developer. I can see that it's like Settlers in the sense that you're putting pieces onto the board to build your empire, and you get victory points for doing that. And I can see where it's like Risk in the sense that you can attack other territories and even use cards to bolster yourself in some way. In Risk, you usually play cards to reinforce your armies. In this game, it goes beyond that and divides the cards into 3 separate decks, and you can do a multitude of things. So I do like the fact that the player has a lot of choice here with regard to the cards. That's probably my favorite thing of this game, is just the fact that there's 3 decks, and the player can choose between these decks on a whim, on their turn, and play various cards. So players can develop different strategies by utilizing the 3 different decks. So I like that. This being compared to Monopoly, though, I don't get that. Just because, well, first, Monopoly is a game about real estate. It's about a player owning property. In this game, you don't get anything besides victory points for owning a particular property. You're not charging your opponent's rent. You're not getting some sort of benefit for having countries of all of a particular color, nothing like that. In Monopoly, you would be able to put houses and hotels on properties where you had all the same color. So in this game, I don't understand the reference to Monopoly at all. Honestly, I don't think it's apt here. I would call this more of a comparison between Settlers of Catan and Risk. Besides that, my only complaint with the game is the price and the art. The price is $27, $28 on the official website. And I get it. There are some costs associated with developing games, publishing them. I don't know anything about that. I'm a consumer first, not a publisher or developer by any means. But when I look at the art at this game, and then I compare it to the other games in my collection, I think this is a little limiting. I think more attention could have been made or put toward the art style of this game. Like, the box art by itself, I mean, granted, I can only draw stick figures, but I've seen box art that's a heck of a lot better than this. Same thing with these cards here, the card backs. It's just a sword of one color. And it's just, everything looks like a pencil sketch. And granted, I don't want to knock the artist who, did the art for this game. Much better than I could have done. But when you compare that to other games that you may own, it falls short. For example, Stone Age or any other game like Ingenious or Stone Age will grab your attention from across the room and go, wow, look at all those colors, look how sharp they are, they go well together. The art in this game just doesn't mesh well together. All the different colors and the countries, and it's bleh. It's like someone threw up Rainbow Bright all over the board, and I'm sorry. It's just, I don't like the art style. Some people might. I don't. I don't think it's very eye-catching. I think it's a little ugly. And because of that, I don't think the price tag of, $27, $28 is warranted when you can get so much more out of another game like Power Grid, which is prettier, has more components, and only costs between $30 and $35 compared to this game's $28. But other than that, I mean, the game is okay. I mean, I'm not going to knock it too hard here. I like the strategy aspect. It's very simple. Children and older people will be able to play this without a problem. Casual gamers will be able to play this. And the nice thing, it can be played in only 30 minutes. So you don't have to spend hours like in Risk to get one single game. And you could play probably 2 or 3 games within the span of one game of Risk. Probably even more than that. So with that being said, if you guys want to see my full review, you can. www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can keep up to date with any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.